Welcome back. Without much further ado, let's get into this very pertinent conversation. Last week, the National Unity Platform Party confirmed what was now a public secret, that Honorable Mpuuga, yes, Nyendo Mukungwe, was going to lead the opposition in Parliament. This comes at a time when this young party is still under siege from fellow opposition members. Number one, a state machinery, we're talking about the NRM, that keeps disappearing its members, and a lot of doubting Thomases watching on the sidelines to see how NUP transforms an election wave that defied a lot of odds into credible parliamentary representation. We're talking about the National Unity Platform Party now having the biggest opposition majority with over 57 MPs within that August House. You have FDC having some 32 MPs, DP largely 8 MPs in that regard. So how does Mr. Mpuuga plan to galvanize all those forces, PPP, People's Progressive Party, JEMA, within Parliament to ensure that they are one force that is going to take on the issues that it plans to tackle, accountability and service delivery? If FDC failed in its bid in the previous years, for over 15 years, to bring together opposition forces, how does the National Unity Platform Party plan to bring about all those forces within Parliament so that they take on the junta? Very good morning, Mr. Matthias.
Good morning to you, sir.
Indeed. Let's start on that thought. The fact that you have so many opposition political parties, FDC, DP, JEMA, People's Progressive Party within Parliament, but they are disunited. We saw that during the speakership elections. They couldn't decide whether they were going to go for Semujunganda, FDC, or NUP, which decided to go for Rebecca Kadaga on the orders of the principal, which is Robert Chagulanyi. For the last 15 years, FDC had dismantled with their one people, one Uganda mantra within Parliament, but they failed to unify opposition with Parliament. What silver trick do you have up your sleeve to actually do this?
Can we start with the record that the NUP president never ordered anyone to vote for anybody? That's wrong information at your disposal. I want to put on record that I have never been part of a platform to order anybody to vote for anyone. We had very candid internal conversations about the possibilities, and we went out there basing on the conversation, and the conversation was internal. So you are telling viewers something you...
Indeed. I called Joe Sonyinyi that Saturday. I was like, okay, the Central Executive Committee is locked down. They haven't even figured out which candidate to choose. Whom are you going for? And he said, I can't tell you right now, Romeo. I'll tell you by Monday. I could tell you I didn't know even on that Monday. You kept it a secret.
The very reason I'm saying we had a liberal conversation, and we thought that the fact that the opposition never had occasion to convene and agree on a candidate, it was, I mean, didn't make sense for us to order around our members. But we discussed the possibilities and their implications, and
so this hearsay on NUP actually backing Kadaga could be professed during the campaigns. When he went to Kamoli, he actually said, if you vote for me, yes, I'll give Kadaga a very juicy position in my administration. So many of the experts contended that's why he was actually backing Rebecca Kadaga. But that is a story for another day. We are talking about how best the new leader of opposition, Matthias Mpuuga, is going to put together all the opposition forces within Parliament to take on the junta, to take on your new direction, which is a new path of accountability and service delivery.
Invariably, any leader in Parliament would want to work with everyone, and I have no doubt that colleagues coming up in the 11th Parliament do appreciate the fact that we have a duty to work as a team, no matter our background and convictions. I normally ask the question that if we are divided, who benefits from the divisions? As NUP, it's true we are a new party, but we are not new on the opposition platform.
Indeed.
So the whole idea of they are new, of they are fresh, does not add up. We are looking for partners within the opposition platform and across the NRM and the independents to work with us. It won't be new that eventually, I have been in Parliament for 2 terms, and for all these occasions, the opposition joined in fractures, but eventually we did establish common ground and reason to work together. As NUP, we shall seek the same reason to work together. We are not looking for patrons. We are looking for people with the conviction to work with us. So the whole idea of anyone, any individual or party attempting to patronize NUP does not arise. And we are not out to look for patrons. We have the experience, we have the knowledge, we have an idea of which areas we want to push to try and make a difference in our flagging democracy. So we are prepared for it. It's not about me as an individual. I'm only a leader of the front line. I'm only a commander of the forces. But behind me are men and women of valor and conviction. If you saw the array of the appointments to the committees, probably the viewers will agree with me that we have no deficit of able men and women. But we also know the fact that Ugandans out there who want to see a better country, a parliament that makes a difference, would love to see us work together. I've told people on different fora that even if we chose the path of division, the citizens will force us to work together, because their choices are limited to pursuing a difference. And that difference can only come if we're going to overcome the regime juggernaut that has the forest majority. Then we have to swallow our pride. We have to really climb down our high horses and get to speak to each other with honesty and humility, and get to do this job we seek to do, to demand for accountability and service. It's people first.
Indeed.
Yeah, so individuals and the egos being traded do not make sense, and they won't make a difference in the lives of the people that wish to see a better country. Despite our differences with the regime, the citizens that voted us continue to subscribe taxes to this regime. We must demand for service, no matter the differences, no matter the disagreements that we have with the regime and the manner in which they appropriated state power.
You've taken over as leader of opposition at a very daunting, and you have a very daunting task. You've just gotten out of of an election. You've had some of your supporters being arrested. Some of them have been killed. November 18th to 20th, 54 people were killed. The president told us 32 were rioters, but recently, according to some investigations we were carrying out, we realized only 11 were rioters, and 42 died as a result of the stray bullets. So how do you plan to tackle this issue of accountability when it comes to human rights violations? What's your plan?
Well, I don't want to go into the specifics, but
Don't preempt.
I'll tell you that my first 100 days and my team, we're going to zero down on demanding for accountability, especially from individuals and groups over race violations during the last election. I am very sure members of parliament from across the parties come to parliament with the backdrop of a very violent election. Actually, calling it an election probably is an abuse to people who have participated in elections before. It was like a war. When did we convince ourselves that a political contest is a criminal act? When did we begin criminalizing the contestation for state power? This conversation and more would have had the first 100 days of my leadership in parliament. We want to invite colleagues from across the aisle to appreciate the fact that we are at the service of citizens who actually hate to see what we see now. And I want to believe that in the environment in which we are operating, members of parliament from across will be willing to, without any divisionism, discuss with honesty the troubles of our politics, namely the criminalization of political contestation or contestation for power. As we speak, it's not that our supporters, our members were killed and arrested. They are still being arrested and shot at, even as we speak. Just last week, 2 young men that work with us closely were picked, and we had to establish their whereabouts. We have been, we have buried people's children, killed without cause, and even the president said that, these were rioters, and you are stating that some investigators say 11 were rioters. Who has the description and definition of a rioter in the circumstances? Who has? So probably the country is running away from a conversation about bad politics, and this is the kind of invitation I want us to really make to members of parliament. Any member of parliament worth their name and dignity would love to participate in a conversation that will bring sanity to our politics, because we seem to be avoiding it. Probably members, there are sections of politicians who fear to discuss this subject because they believe Big Brother does not want that discussion. But Parliament, being the House of Parliament, is the people's parliament, is the platform of the people's consensus. This conversation, ugly or unpalatable as it sounds, real must accrue. And we probably will have to have an up-close conversation with the Speaker to really allow this conversation, especially at the very beginning, such that members can freely speak about it and abetted to bring out what they saw. Even those from the NRM probably have the experience about this whole election and the experience and the suffering their communities are going through because there was contestation for power. Who actually is sponsoring this anarchy? Do we have a constitution? Do we still have and follow this constitution and its prescriptions in as far as elections are concerned? Probably that initial discussion as the investiture of parliament is necessary to inform especially new colleagues as to the nature of duty that awaits them in the election parliament. Yep.
Well, you have individuals like Professor Maurice Ogenga-Latigo, who is saying that the positions that you awarded to in the committees, the MPs, that they were so new, they might not be able to debate very, very well like the experienced legislators, maybe from DP, UPC. They say that they sidelined so many of the experienced seniors from other opposition political parties. They said the positions were awarded based on winner takes all. We saw most of these positions go to NUP members who are actually new MPs, and they believe this will compound absenteeism more in Parliament, and we might not hold to account these individuals whom we seek to do so.
Well, with due respect to the Honourable Professor, I think his statement was generalized because can we name the committee? PAC is chaired by the Honourable Medadi Segona, two-term Member of Parliament, seasoned lawyer, deputized by the Honourable Suman Basarirwa, Jema, President General, that NOP, a lot of experience under his sleeves. Okay.
Yes.
Local government accounts chaired by the Honourable Mapenduzi, a seasoned local government leader, deputized by the Honourable Tamaguzi, two-term Member of Parliament. Is that experience? Honourable Joe Senyon chairs Kosase, fresh, brilliant, deputized by the Honourable Lusa Akelo, two-term FDC. You see the array? Government assurances, chaired by the Honourable Betty Namboze, three-term, deputized by the Honourable Seungu, two-term. Where is inexperience? I think it's it is a generalization, and I want to invite the Honourable Professor to be patient with us. And there's nothing like winner takes all. The committees are very few, and we could only accommodate that array. Sooner than later, we're going to out the shadow cabinet, and this should really be able to make provision for shades of opinion across the opposition. We are alive to these realities, and we are not oblivious of the desire to accommodate shades of opinion. The committees probably are more inviting to members, but I'll tell you, it's not about who chairs the committees. It's also about what we want to deliver as the leading opposition party. But we are alive to the facts that we need to work with others. So the independence will come on board. For the record, the Honourable Pendus is an independent. So we are trying, given the numbers, to accommodate as many as possible, despite you've heard the barbs being thrown at us as NUP, people calling us young and naive. Those are patronizing statements, and I want to invite political party leaders to stop that kind of patronizing.
Because the NRM government itself was full of young people at some point.
And I can tell you, there is a first time for everyone. There's a first time for everyone, as long as the body and spirit is open to learning. There are no exams in Parliament. There are no thesis right. But we shall guide the new members. These new members are not naive. They are land people, and some of us with some experience will take them through the basics, and I'm sure they're eager to have a go at this duty, as long as their mind and spirits are willing to really make up to what it takes to do this job.
Well, according to Betty Awolo-Chan, the last leader of opposition within that parliament, the 10th parliament, she said one of the biggest challenges she had were financially, for financial constraints, and the members of parliament who were just coming in. Now you're dealing with a new slew of MPs. They're very, very young. Some of them are broke, that is a fact, because of the money they spent during the electoral period. How do you plan to take on all those challenges coming through?
Well, financial discipline is a person to holder. As their leader, you can only do much. You're not going to hold on to their money like a pocket money for students.
Indeed.
Because these are adults. And of course, we are all alive to the kind of challenges members of parliament face from their suffering constituents. And as a leader, you're constrained to see a child not going to school, and a mother comes to you crying for help. It's quite a challenge, and which is why members of parliament going through these challenges must rise to the occasion when it comes to appropriation and accountability, because you cannot be the financier of a constituency. It's improbable, it's impossible, it's unthinkable.
Indeed.
So one of the contradictions I find with members is that after going through all these challenges, when it comes to discussing and splitting the budget, then you find them really coiling instead of really pinning government to put money in areas that are going to free their own small resources, such that the public pass finances the public needs. So we can only give these members some orientation, some advice, but we are not going to patronize their earnings. So we can only do so much. Certainly, they've just come out of a very expensive, highly, divisive election. The first of the nature, dubbed scientific, and scientific in a sense, the science turned out to be very monetary. So, but we shall do the needful to try and, as veterans, to show them the need to keep a modicum of discipline. Indeed.
Let's discuss the tyranny of the numbers within our parliament. Every time there's a discussion, there's this argument that is thrown in the face of the opposition. You do not have the numbers, you do not have the numbers, you do not have the numbers. And this was rife during the speakership race, when Mpuuga was taking on the two big heads from the NRM, where we saw also opposition forces vote for the NRM vice chair. They didn't know. They thought we were voting Kadaga opposition, but she is the NRM vice chairperson in that regard. So we'd like to talk about the tyranny of the numbers. Mpuuga, you have 57 members of NUP, you have 32 members of the FDC, 8 members allied to the DP. JEMA maybe one, People's Progressive Party. The tyranny of the numbers, how do you plan to, take it on? The majority of the NRM within Parliament. How do you plan to tackle that?
Suddenly, the tyranny is in part the consequence of some hopeless gerrymandering that created so many
administrative units.
Yeah, sure, and we've got to deal with it. I am alive to these numbers and their disproportionate distribution across the aisle. I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about the quality of debate on the floor of Parliament.
Indeed.
Namely, whether members will have occasion to make sense of the issues that will be coming our way. And I want to hear members raise arguments, superior arguments, to take the day. The NRM has numbers, but is it that NRM members have no sense of duty? We are at the service of the same people. And for me, my invitation to members from the opposition that visibly the minority in size would be to raise superior arguments and challenge that tyranny of numbers, and make an open invitation to these members to see the better view of life across. Because then, over time, I have learned that when you rise and make, issue and make sense on the floor, across you will attract a number of members from the ruling party willing to listen and carry the day with you. I have seen debates on that floor of Parliament, quite divisive, and even when members are being purged and caucused, I have seen members right to the occasion to say, no, this is the better view for Uganda. So maybe the duty is on members of the opposition to raise the quality of their arguments, their debates, the issue they bring on the floor, not boundaries of Ibanja in their communities, matters that are really should be a preserve of sub-county, councils being brought to parliament. I want my members, I want members of the opposition to filter what they bring on the floor, so that they can actually challenge the forest to react for posterity. So the numbers will have to think through whether the difference we make for our people is on the quality of issues or on just being herded like cattle in a kraal.
Of course, you talked about the people's agenda. What exactly do you mean by that?
When I say accountability and service, it's suggested like saying people first.
Yes.
When you say accountability, the first form of accountability is rights.
Indeed.
Yeah, because there's nothing you're going to do when people's rights are being trampled upon. I have heard people say, no, you cannot say accountability and service. It's money first, and then power is education, blah, blah, blah. Beautiful things. But which education when people who are supposed to be consumers are on the run?
Indeed.
When drones are hunting down parents who are supposed to take children to school. So the conversation about people first is about people, their rights, that we can plan for them. So who do you account to for? You account to the people.
Indeed.
On which front? On their freedom of choice. In fact, when people have the freedom, they will even be able to focus parliament on the issues they want. But if people gathering and speak to their leaders is criminal, so whom are you serving? See, leaders cannot convene meetings to speak to their people and seek their views on their priorities. So on whose service are you? So the whole business of talking about service delivery is empty without speaking to the people's right to make choices, uninformed choices, because uninformed choice is born out of a conversation of citizens, in the common locality or shared across the country. And this is only feasible and possible when political leaders are allowed freedom to meet their people, speak to them. But over the years, we have seen the criminalization of political meetings, political gatherings, which is why the political contestation has turned out to be criminal. So, people first. The rest will follow. We have very beautiful plans. We have NDP3. If you look at NDP3, it's supposed to inform the budget. But if you bring the two in tandem, they are communicating different things. But one of the reasons is because the resources of the country are competing with bad politics. The resources that are supposed to implement NDP3 are competing with the regime survival.
Indeed.
So you cannot speak about anything developmental without people's rights to take choices, to make decisions, and then you can speak about developing the people. Yeah.
Let's talk about the financial muscle that you need as opposition to take on the junta. That is President Yoweri Museveni and the NRM government. Do you have this financial muscle? It will take a lot of money. But then it seems like opposition is grappling with some bigger fans. The 4 billion in your office, can it go a long way in maybe helping you advance your issues or agenda within this parliament as opposition?
It's not actually 4, it's actually 3.1.
3.1 billion.
Yeah, so, and this is money allocated to party, maybe probably say 70% of it is recurrent expenditure, and probably about 30% you can deploy into research and other things. It is painful, but we can work with whatever is at our disposal.
Indeed.
And the biggest challenge for the opposition is to have qualified and quality staff to help in undertaking research, so that members can come on the floor and debate in an informed manner and be able to do research on the issues to which they're supposed to hold government accountable. And then the problem with the numbers and then the quality. If I want to recruit somebody with a PhD research-based to come and help out to lead teams for a particular committee, where the resources. So it's a challenge, but I believe we shall be able to go to the commission and make a case.
Indeed.
If we want to see a better parliament, like the Honorable Olanya promised, that it's going to be a different parliament, then resources must be made available. My sense is that there are lots of other resources floating around parliament that can be really brought into the opposition basket to make this country better. Then, of course, outside parliament, in what you're saying as to what the resources we need to summon energy to be able to stop the regime from suffocating us. It's work in progress. And as long as the front of the opposition is joined, then I have no doubt that we can summon the resources, human and financial, to be able to surmount the challenge of an armed regime posing as a political party.
Of course, you have a daunting task ahead of you, one of them being how best you shall actually galvanize the forces, the opposition, bringing them together. That is the biggest problem right there. Many of the political experts I've been talking to was saying it's going to be the biggest challenge for yourself. How best can you bring together the FDC, which is still angry about the speakership race, Mpuuga saying, well, Noop did not support me and so forth, they abandoned me, and so many other issues coming about these positions that were awarded in Parliament. Now you have the shadow cabinet that is also coming. Would like to know how best Matthias Mpuuga, as leader of opposition, plans to put these forces together to take on the junta in that regard. And that conversation shall be continued shortly after this breather. You're still watching Morning at NTV. Mr. Mpuuga, we were talking about the fact that the speakership race left the opposition torn. You have the FDC that is up in arms. They're saying, well, Noop did not support us. Why? Why did Mpuuga get 15 votes? And then the NRM National Vice Chair got 197. Does that mean that opposition forces had more faith in an NRM candidate? And we also have political experts who are saying these fights might spill over into the next year and the other one, meaning for the next 2 years, opposition might be fighting about this. So if we are talking about building consensus to take on the NRM government, how will that be achieved if the opposition is divided?
I have restrained myself from going into the nitty-gritties of this speakership election in relation to our comrades from FDC, because the whole conversation and what they front as the issue is really intellectual dishonesty. Because I am very sure they know what happened, and they're trying to go for the soft target, which is Noop. But if you ask them whether they got their own votes, if there's anything like their own votes in courts, they actually never got them.
They did.
So if we go into speaking about whether they were convinced that they were actually competing, it's a conversation probably I would have loved to engage in if a member, particularly if Honorable Semju was here, so that I can ask him questions, that he can ask me, I also ask him questions, because he surely knows that I know what he knows. And I think it's not really honest, it's not decent what they're saying.
When I asked him last week when he came around, I asked him, did the people of Kira municipality send you to Parliament to halt the dictator President Museveni, or did they actually send you to Parliament to hold those leaders to account and service delivery? And he said, I'm in Parliament because I'm here to fight the dictator. We would like to know, since you're the leader of opposition within this Parliament, is this the official communique of the opposition? That you want to fight the junta, President Museveni? I would like to know. I want to know from you, what is your position as the leaders of opposition?
Let's finish this. The Honorable Semju and the rest of members have every right to seek to be speakers of that house. They have the same rights as the Honorable Jacob Olanya and any other members that competed. So that right, bona fide, cannot be taken away from them. And but my invitation was that in the future, they need to be honest about their convictions and their choices. If they are not convinced about what they're doing, they should never do it as a form of blackmail to colleagues they would rather work with honesty. I rest my case on that subject. Then secondly, is to whether we are out for a fight. Call it a fight, call it something else. We're out there to make a difference. How you fight depending on the tools at your disposal. And it's not a fist fight we're going into. It's a fight of issues, and we believe we can raise superior issues. Our concerns for the bigger part is whether the majority, the artificial majority, will be able to see sense in what you're saying. I'm dubbing it artificial because I know a good array of these people never won democratically. They are in parliament by some other underhand methods of election, and the handwork of the military, bribery, and all forms of electoral malpractice. But they are thrown in, and if they're not challenged, they're there for us to work with. And the fight is a fight.
Indeed.
It's a fight to see a better country.
The
Probably
agenda.
we'll have to we'll have to
Right.
to force some of our colleagues to see things better, or we ask their electorates to force them to see things differently. Which is why the conversation into our right to participate into the future of this country comes up. That the next time you set out to go and meet the people of Koboko, where the NRM allegedly won, whether the police and the military will not interfere with an attempt by the opposition to go and speak to the people. Because when we speak to the people listen, and the next time the member of parliament appears, they'll pose these questions. And we understand why the regime will not allow politicians to access particular constituencies. During the campaign, we got to learn that there are areas that the regime had ring-fenced as a preserve of General Museveni to campaign. And when we did attempt to access them, the citizens were brutalized for attempting to wait for the Honorable Kyagulanyi. It was even a crime to attempt to wait for him and listen to him.
I see.
So we really want to undo this kind of thinking. I get to think that some of the members of the political class probably don't even have the smallest understanding of the kind of problem that we are incubating for this country if we continue doing that kind of politics. It is the kind of politics that are going to turn politics into a fight, other than a contestation of ideas and programs. So to call it a fight, yes, it's a fight because we need to fight to have our voice heard by those who believe that the numbers are all about that we need in parliament. We need numbers, yes, but also we need sense as well.
Of course, you've just mentioned that President Museveni had some of the areas ring-fenced for him to campaign. And there's some of the factors that the Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy was talking about Friday when they released their report, and they said the just concluded election was the most disgraceful. That's what they said. They said it was not free, it was not fair. You had people being killed, people being abducted and so forth. Now, you've just mentioned President Museveni had some areas ring-fenced for him to actually go ahead and campaign. But you, as the leader of opposition within Parliament, what do you make of this just concluded election? Do you actually agree with SEDU when they say it was free, unfair, disgraceful, all the above?
Initially, when you called an election, I told you, despite being elected as member of parliament for Mpuuga in Masaka City, the circumstances that really formed this parliament cannot be described as an election. But we understand that fighting a dictatorship is an additive duty, it's not an event. And alive to our history, we continue to say we just concluded an election, but it was a disgraceful exercise, to say the least. And at one stage, I longed to share a platform with Justice Byabakama to speak to the country as to what he was presiding over, whether as a justice of the court of appeal. He's proud of his achievement because I'm very sure at some stage he could have asked himself as to whether he's actually the one presiding over this election. He was lost, which is why up to now he cannot produce a consistent tally of the election results. On the day he announced General Museveni as winner, he had no basis. And for almost 4 months, on a daily basis, the statistics on their website was changing. So at one time, they simply blocked it, And I said, we have had enough shame. Let's simply clean up. And so I've taken long looking at it. I don't know what is there now. Probably they have tinkered enough and they have cooked enough. At one stage, there was a particular district in which the results on the Electoral Commission website, the number of votes cast were even higher than the population of the district. So calling disgraceful is even an understatement.
Indeed.
It never was an election. It was an attempt at an election. It was botched.
The Citizens Coalition for Electoral Democracy in Uganda, they had Executive Director Charity Ahimbisi. I talked to her in January, and I was like, well, February rather, after the election, and I was like, where's your report on the election? She said, Rom, you know, I'm going to wait until the swearing in of the president, the speakership elections are over, and then I shall release it. And indeed, the details was last year's NDUC. President Museveni won 100% at some polling stations. Talk to us about those cases of bribery that took center stage within this election.
You know, just ask yourself, in which world would an Electoral Commission post that a candidate got 100%?
At a particular polling station.
100% turnout.
103 people,
no
voters, 103 votes for Museveni.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, 100% turnout is not even a big crime, but in some cases, the votes cast were more than the voters on the roll.
I see.
That's how botched it were. But we are talking about systemic failure, namely that the institutions that are supposed to court order the political players are non-existent. The Electoral Commission in existence in name, but in terms of capacity, in terms of freedom to organize a free and fair election, it simply cannot, because apparently we are into a presidential monarch, and the elections probably are organized as a ritual, a regular ritual whenever they fall due to entrench the monarch. And unless the House of Parliament, forget about the manner in which it was constituted, because it's an outcome of a botched election. But you see, people can come clean, just like former criminals can be reformed and turn into very useful citizens. That House of Parliament, with proper leadership, with people willing to make a difference, can actually turn tables on the system, on the regime, and roll back and herald better times for the country. Indeed. Just take an example on the biggest failure of the 10th Parliament. The 10th Parliament will be remembered for failing to call to an end to the reign of General Museveni by amending the Constitution.
Yes.
And it will go down as their biggest failure. But they had the powers to make a difference. And you see, in fact, the violence that we saw in the last election were the consequence of failure by the 10th Parliament to act when called upon. So Parliament, in its shape, has a duty. The numbers across, no matter big, how much, no matter small, can make a difference. So there's need for individual members to do self-education on their duty, to do self-education on the kind to really to look at how bad our politics has come, to think through the possibilities. I am a bit warm about the possibilities, because I've been looking at the numbers and then the age.
Yes.
There are so many young people, not young in as the underage, but comparatively younger people in the 11th Parliament. And this age group, the age range, 30, 28, 30, 35, they posit a warmth that probably they look at the future, they have more time to live and plan for their children and grandchildren, and therefore they would love to see a better Uganda. And it would be probably the duty of us with better experience to speak to them about the possibilities, the failures of the past, and invite them to rethink, to think positively about the future. And part of the future is to undo what the past failed to fix.
Indeed. Not to continue with the status quo.
Yeah, certainly. They'll need to be invited to understand that we can make this country better because we are the leaders of our people. And the House of Parliament should be a house of consensus, to build a consensus for this country. The afflictions of our politics are in part because we have never drawn the red line to determine what is acceptable and not acceptable.
Indeed.
We are a country of all possibilities. You can never build a democracy where there are no impossibilities. There are no bars, political, legal, and otherwise. When you think the Constitution is a consensus, the Constitution apparently, as we know it now, is simply a piece of paper and black ink, in the wisdom of some people. And indeed, it has come to pass. So, the question now probably, and the biggest duty of the Parliament, is to discuss with honesty the durability of our constitutional democracy.
Indeed.
For the last parliaments in which I've been a part, the 9th and 10th, we have had talk of a constitutional review. And I remember in the 9th parliament, when we sought to amend the constitution to make a number of considerations to try and roll back on some of what we called violation of the constitution by re-entrenching some articles. We made consultations as the opposition. We even launched the People's Compact at Africana. We came to Parliament to try and encourage members to have this discussion. We were told we were time barred, that it was referred to the 10th Parliament. When we came to the 10th Parliament, we were told that there was no time. So we undertook what we regard as Freemason amendments, because the Constitution now became a person to hold a document. We particularly went for those areas where an individual had personal interest, hence the amendment of Article 102, simply to appease the gods of our politics.
You see,
and I believe this is the biggest failure.
Matthias and Mpuuga, you have individuals who might think that your fight against President Museveni and the term limits, age limits, and all these constitutional requirements are emotional. But indeed, if President Museveni were to vacate that seat and another person comes as president and there are no term limits, there is no age limit, it would be with a full-blown dictator.
Yeah, which is why I'm talking about the fact that the discussion should be about the durability of our constitution.
Indeed.
Because apparently our constitution, certainly a better constitution would be a flexible constitution. But there are those areas that should not be really flexible. For example, the role of particular state agencies in our democracy. Should we have the military in our elections? Should we still have this huge parliament as to where, with a number of special interest groups that are even now growing? Initially we had the army, we had the youth, we had the workers, we had the people with disability. Now we have the elderly. Probably the next amendment shall bring the witch doctors and you know, you can't tell. So this.
And you are telling me the college itself, the electoral college is susceptible to bribery.
Certainly, because I am very sure the regime fixers want this to be the case, because they're sure in special interest groups you have a small college that is susceptible, and you have most of them regime leaning, because the group is small, it's compromisable, and it's open bribery in these special interest group elections. It's you know, pay as you go. You know, you can't even. It's the biggest abuse and insult on our democracy.
They were paying them in broad daylight.
Yeah. And there's no denial by both the buyer and the seller.
Indeed.
So we cannot be part of a system that attempts to entrench this kind of politics. So the 11th Parliament will have to push for very robust constitutional amendments to consider particular pillars of our constitution. Because my sense is that if the constitution were a house, it has no door, it has no windows. It's simply amorphous. It's like a pot, you know. So we need to return fresh air onto our constitution by returning the ventilators that our constitution democracy can breathe.
Does the
At the
NRM
moment, we are
benefit
suffering
from
suffocation.
such a weak constitution, and what does that say about our multi-party democracy? Are you of the view that since the restoration of multi-party politics 2006, 2005, do you think there's been a clear growth in democracy in Uganda, or a downward spiral?
Yes and no. Yes, in a sense that we all demanded for the return to multi-party democracy, and that was a plus. But you see, if you return it in a theory and practice is monolithic,
Indeed.
then perhaps it's an abuse of our intelligence. We sought to have an array of ideas compete. We never sought to compete via shooting. Because if you look at the last election, and we call it a multi-party, competition, it's far from what we sought to have.
Indeed.
So the amendment to have multi-party, according to the regime, was only supposed to serve ink and paper, but not practice. And we will have to work so hard and compel and force the regime to respect the Constitution. And part of this must start from the honest conversation of members of parliament, because they speak for the people. I am very sure the people of Uganda do not want what they see. It's ruled by the gun, which is why political competitors are barred from reaching in particular places, because the regime does not want them to speak to the people. The people of Uganda want to listen to everybody and make an informed choice. Indeed. The people of Uganda want to make a decision. They don't want to be forced. I am aware of particular constituencies where people tell you, we never voted. We reached the polling station at 10 o'clock and were told the voting ended, simply go away. In some areas, they were told the voting ended, they were given some money to go and have a drink and wait for announcement of the electoral results. So I think this is really ugly, it is really stupid. We need to roll back this kind of politics. In the short term, there's only a single beneficiary, General Museveni, not the NRM as a party, because the party doesn't exist anyway. It is a one-man show, and the single person is a beneficiary because he believes this is about him. I've heard him severally. He speaks about the Constitution and our democracy in first person singular. I. And when the last time I heard him speak about his meetings with the other parties at Kololo, the day we elected the speaker, I said, I am meeting with these. He's never spoken in third person plural, that we are meeting. So this is not about General Museveni the person, it's about our country. And we want members of parliament to understand that even if you are a beneficiary of General Museveni's magnanimity to be in parliament, this country will outlive him, so legislate for posterity. So this is the kind of talk we need to have as members of parliament. You
have individuals who are saying that President Museveni will never go unless electoral reforms are instituted. Will this be your focus in your tenure as LOP?
He will certainly go. Of course, I have buttressed our desire to make reforms as one of our key legislative agenda issues. Whether it takes General Museveni could stay if he's willing to participate in a free and in fact our fight with him is not personal. No, our fight with him is about his failure to understand that this country is bigger than him, and therefore his participation in politics is not an act of magnanimity, it's a service to the people. So we want to cultivate a common platform where all of us can compete in a free and fair manner.
All right. Thank you very much, Matthias Mpuuga. We are talking the Constitution, we are talking security, we are talking the economy, everything alike. Our 11th Parliament, how will it be shaped? And that's a major conversation we are having right here on Morning at NTV. I also do have Ivan Wallenyo. Let's get your last thoughts on commercialization of politics and whether or not it's the reason we've ended up with bad leaders in this country. Monetized politics.
You know, the politics per se is supposed to be a contestation of competences, not wealth.
Indeed.
Competences that are various, and political parties are supposed to sponsor their best. They're supposed to have internal democracy such that at the end of the day, they select for citizens leaders of a caliber that would be able to entrench the ideals of these communities. But because politics has been monetized, and because over the years the people with ideas and without money, you know, it all started with legislations that locked out particular categories of people. For example, if you're a civil servant and you want to participate in politics, you must probably retire, 6 to 9 months a priori. And this was initially done by politicians in parliament to lock down particular sections of society. But little did they know that by doing that again, they're opening the doors and ventilators for another category of people. Those are the people with money.
Do you plan to tackle these through legislation in parliament?
Certainly, we in the 9th parliament, we had started to, we actually have a bill in draft on the commercialization of politics.
Amazing.
And we shelved it because the consultations were incomplete.
Indeed.
Probably there's now more reason for us to call it and seek for speaker's audience.
There is.
To have it tabled. At the end of the day, because politics has been monetized, we have missed an opportunity to have decent people to come and be part of politics. Hitherto, you could get people from academia, but academicians are some of the worst paid citizens.
Indeed, indeed.
Abused citizens, and therefore they cannot summon their small finances to go and throw them into a ditch without end called politics. So so eventually you have gotten people that have money but without a soul to lead our people.
Yeah.
Which is why even when you come to parliament, the whole idea that a member of parliament has been bought is not just annoying but really humbling.
Indeed.
That a member of parliament is bought to vote on a bill, and when you ask yourself how much, I had one of the statements I never forget from the 10th parliament, from a member exiting. He said it in Luganda, tugenda ne tukyabanja. So in saying that they still have unpaid debts from some of the bills they passed. I mean,
Matthias Mpuuga is the new leader of opposition. I couldn't have been prouder to have this conversation with you as the new leader of the opposition in the 11th Parliament. And we wish you all the best in your new tenure. Interact with us, you know, much more often as Morning at NTV.
At your disposal.
We are the #1 breakfast in the country, and we have the whole country at your disposal waiting to listen to you.
Thank you.
And to watch. And of course, and to you at home who has been watching Morning at NTV, thank you very much. But we still do have another conversation, courtesy of Stephen Mbide, with the skyrocketing cases of COVID-19. He would like to talk to the people of Mpuuga